and welcome everybody to another installment of our Elo Gauntlet breakdowns. Today, we're going to be talking about China, and to help us figure out the most unorthodox region coming to the Gauntlet, we've brought in the master himself, Kenobi.
For those of us who might not know who you are, Kenobi, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Kenobi. I am a Chinese Contenders color caster for the region. I've been covering Chinese Contenders for about a year now, so the last 4 seasons. So I have a lot of knowledge I would expect from this region, and I'm really excited to be here talking with you guys about it. I always love talking about some Chinese Contenders Overwatch.
Well, here's your chance to just go on a tirade about it, Kenobi, because a lot of us weren't quite able to follow Chinese Contenders this season, so why don't you give us a quick rundown of how this season went over in China?
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely understand people not keeping up with Chinese Contenders. It is pretty early in the morning for some people out there. I know, Lafon, we've been up some early mornings trying to color cast and cast some of these games in China. But I think with Chinese Contenders, I think the most interesting thing about this season is that we had repeat champions in LGE.Huya, who we'll talk about later. But throughout the majority of the season, they weren't the team that was the best team in China. It was a team called Bilibili Gaming, who rolled through the entire regular season. They were playing a lot of triple DPS compositions, and no one really stood a chance in beating them. They have probably 3 of the best players in their role in China at the moment. You have Coldest, the best flex support, you have Over, the best main tank, and you have Shy, the best Chinese DPS. So all of these really good players, and they showed it throughout the regular season, except when they got to playoffs. A lot of things changed. We had the 2-2-2 lock, and like I mentioned before, BLG played a lot of triple DPS and played at a very aggressive style and very fast-paced style, but that didn't really lend itself to the 2-2-2 meta we had with the Reaper Mei and the Reaper Hanzo. But a team that it did favor was LGE.Huya, because LGE.Huya was used to playing a much more slower style. We saw from Season 1, they played a lot of the Sombra Goats, and it revolved around a lot around them being just playing a slower style with the Sombra and just waiting for that EMP, because they had someone called Hacker on their team who was just a Sombra one-trick. So when going into those playoffs, they played each other in the semifinals, LGE and BLG, and LGE came out ahead, and it seemed like it was really a surprise for everyone watching. No one expected, I know Lafon as well, when we were talking about it going into the matchup, we were like, BLG is going to win this, it's easy, they're going to make grand finals, they're going to make Gauntlet, but LGE comes in, and they absolutely roll BLG on this ice pick composition, the Mei Hanzo. No one could stop them.
All right, so that's, the playoffs, and as we know, LGE actually did go on to win the grand finals. I think that last grand finals matchup was not one we would call terrific, so we'll kind of skip past that one. Suffice it to say, LGE did make it to Gauntlet themselves, but what would you say is one match from the season that if a viewer wants to know what China's about, they should go back and watch?
The one match that I think would define Chinese Contenders going back through all of the seasons that I've covered it from Season 2, the one that I would pick is the quarterfinal matchup between LGE.Huya and T1W.GZA. T1W and LGE.Huya played previously in the grand finals of Season 1 of 2019. Not the greatest match ever, but this match lived up to all of the hype. It went 5 games, last map, last round, 99-99, and LG just barely squeaked it out. But it was really showcasing of what the great strength of the Chinese region is. Just a lot of DPS play, a lot of pop-offs, a lot of unconventional things. We were in the 2-2-2 meta, but T1W is running basically just Doomfist one-trick with Micha, who is arguably one of the best Doomfists in Contenders at the moment. So if there's any match that I think anyone should go back and watch, it's going to be that one.
Now, coming into Gauntlet, LGE.Huya has secured China's only spot, but do you have confidence in this team after their last international showing?
It's kind of hard to say. I really want to believe in LGE.Huya. I really want them to do well. They're the only representative we have in China, so I'm kind of putting all of my eggs into the LGE.Huya basket, but after that last showing that they had at the Pacific Showdown, it's kind of hard for me to say that this team, has what it takes. Are there going to be those kind of moments where they remember what happened, or have they cleaned the slate? They're starting fresh. They've won the season of Chinese Contenders. Now they're going back and trying to redeem themselves. I definitely hope it's the latter, where they have, completely blocked Pacific Showdown from their memory. They don't even think about it anymore. They're like, this is a clean new slate. We're going up against different competition. And now we have a chance to really redeem ourselves and show the world that we deserve to be in Korea, we deserve to be in the Gauntlet, and we deserve to be representing Chinese Contenders.
Okay, so who should we be keeping an eye on then? Who do you really have confidence in? I'm led to believe that there was a Sombra one-trick by the name of Hacker that this team was once upon built around. Now that he is no longer on LGE.Huya, who are you looking at?
The person that I'm going to be looking out for the most going into Gauntlet is actually the person who kind of quote-unquote replaced Hacker as the carry of the team, and that's going to be Kami, especially now that we're in a meta where Doomfist is very prevalent. Kami does have a very good Doomfist, but the issue with Kami is that Kami has always been kind of second fiddle to no matter who's been on his team. When I first started covering Chinese contenders, he was the second fiddle to Undead. Then we went into Goats meta, he was kind of just a Brig one-trick. We went into the Somber Goats meta, he's playing behind Hacker, still on the Brigitte. Hacker was on this team for the entirety, basically, of the regular season, and Kami was still just playing, Zarya, he was playing Brigitte, not playing the DPS heroes that he definitely shines on. And going into the playoffs, Kami was finally unshackled. Me and lafon would talk about it all the time. Kami is finally unshackled, is what we would always say. He put on an amazing performance on his Mei. He did bring out the Doomfist a couple of times, and it worked out pretty well. So Kami is definitely someone that I think going into Gauntlet, people should be looking out for. And not even that, just even going further, I think Kami is a player that could definitely make some noise going into future seasons of just contenders in general, or OWL. I think he's that good of a player.
Do you think these players fit well into the current meta? Obviously, Hacker no longer the team. They do have Merit as sort of the quote-unquote replacement Kami coming into his own as well. Do you expect they go into the current meta trying to follow the footsteps of everyone else, or do you expect China to do China things and kind of play their own strategies?
Well, that's kind of the weird thing about LGE, isn't it? Is they won Chinese contenders playing basically what the meta was, right? They played the Mei Reaper, they played the Mei Hanzo, they stuck to the meta and basically only meta. They weren't really one of the teams that divulged from it a lot. We had a lot of other teams like T1W, for instance, playing Doomfist Sombra a lot more often with Hammond. Team CC, for instance, was bringing out Ashe when they were playing the 2-2-2. So LGE was the team that basically won Chinese contenders off of playing the meta, and they played it pretty damn well, I would say.
And I guess pivoting from that too, right, to the meta shift, what we talked about, we kind of hinted at it a couple of the questions before, but Doomfist, Reaper, these are the two DPS that are going to come into play, but we haven't talked about the tank line so much. And Sigma and Orisa are definitely the mainstays, if you will. Do you think that LGE.Huya, with their roster, with their personnel, with their staff, will be able to kind of bring that that Sigma dominance that you kind of need in this current patch?
So that's another thing that's interesting about the Gauntlet in general, is that this is the first time that we're going to be seeing a lot of these teams play Sigma, because, when we were in playoffs for contenders, there was no Sigma allowed. It was still 2-2-2, but no Sigma. So mentioning the tank line for this team, I think this tank line is actually pretty darn good, all things considered. It's one of the best tank lines in China, definitely top 3, and JMac, people will know that name from a while ago, and he's definitely kept up his pace as being one of the best main tanks in China. His Orisa looked very clean throughout the entirety of Chinese contenders. He looks like he has good coordination with Sven, with Kami, with Merit as well, which is definitely important for the meta that we see now, where a lot of it's based around, comboing Halt with things. Halt, I know lafon likes to say, is one of the most important, if not the most important things in this current meta. So JMac definitely is someone on the Orisa who you can definitely hang your hat on and be a rock and be kind of your just bastion in this composition. And for Sven has had an interesting season so far throughout, where he's been playing a lot of different things. He's played Winston, he's played Orisa, he's played Brigitte, he's played Zarya, he's played D.Va and Hog. And I think that with that flexibility, he definitely has an understanding of how to pick up characters very quickly. So Sven is someone who I think going into Gauntlet, I think has a definitely good chance of being one of the better Sigmas, because he does have such flexibility and he seems to pick up heroes very quickly.
All right, now let's apply all of these expectations around LGE to the Gauntlet format. Reminder, for those maybe not familiar with the format, there will be one team from each of our initial 2 groups of 4 that will not advance to the knockout bracket. LGE is in a group with Team Envy and Gladiators Legion from North America, as well as Gen.G Esports from Korea. Now, Kenobi, do you think that this is a group they can succeed in?
Obviously, this group is a little bit top-heavy. You have Envy at the top, along with Gen.G Esports, and then kind of there's a little bit of a gap, I believe, between Gladiators Legion and LGE.Huya, and I think Gladiators Legion and LGE.Huya are going to be the teams battling out for that second spot. I think at the current moment, Gladiators Legion and LGE.Huya are 2 of the teams that need to prove themselves a little bit more. I think that their matchup against Gen.G Esports is going to be very difficult for LGE.Huya, and then when we go to the losers bracket, I expect them to be playing Gladiators Legion, Legion because Envy just looks pretty strong at the moment. Then it's going to be Gladiators Legion versus LGE.Huya, and I think that matchup is more in the favor of LGE.Huya. I think Gladiators Legion is one of the weaker teams at the tournament right now, where I think LGE is in that like high, lower, middle pack tier at the moment. So I think they can definitely beat Gladiators Legion and send them home, and then go over to that other side of the bracket. Then they're gonna have to play Envy or Genji Esports again. Very difficult game no matter who you're playing in that one. So I think they have a pretty good chance of getting out of the groups just because there is only one person who goes home. There's these 3 teams, and I think LGE.Huya is probably the second or third best team in this Group B.
All right, Kenobi, you've been a fantastic guest, and you've taught us quite a bit about LGE.Huya and Contenders China. But now it's time for us to put you on the spot. Who do you think wins the Overwatch Contenders Gauntlet in its inaugural format?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. Well, I mean, obviously it has to be LGE.Huya who wins, right? I mean, who else would I say could win this Contenders Gauntlet? They're going to be able to run through this entire bracket. They're going to make the losers run, the golden losers run. No, okay, if I'm being honestly serious, that was my China bias coming through a little bit there, but I honestly think it's going to be a battle between Runaway and between Atlanta Academy. I think those are probably the 2 strongest teams at the moment, especially because Atlanta Academy has Gator back. We've seen Gator play the Sigma and Owl, and he has a lot of practice on the hero already. He's warmed up. He's ready and rearing to go on Sigma, where I'm not sure if a lot of these other teams have played Sigma in such a competitive setting just yet. So I think Atlanta has the edge in terms of that. But I think Runaway, just as a team, as a unit, is one of the strongest teams in the Gauntlet right now. They won Korean Contenders. They're looking to win the first Contenders Gauntlet. I think it's going to be a battle between those 2, and then obviously LG.Huya is going to make everything happen, and they're going to win the entire thing anyways. So it doesn't really matter.
I was wondering how long it would go, your LGE.Huya and China bias, but Kenobi, thank you so much. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at KenobiCast if you like to hear me fanboy about Chinese Contenders, Chinese Overwatch. If you like Bumblebee fan art, go there too. I have that in spades, so follow me at KenobiCast on Twitter.
All right, well, that'll be it for our look at the Chinese region coming into the Gauntlet. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, there's a button for that down below. And if not, leave us a comment. We're always looking to improve. But either way, follow Esports for more Overwatch content.